All right. What is going on, everybody? Sorry about continuously changing the time on this thing. I was going to do it last night, then stuff came up with life. I was going to do it earlier this morning, but my kid didn't sleep, so I didn't sleep last night. So running on fumes here, had a nice big coffee with an extra espresso shot. So we're going to get through it. But we're live and we're doing this, so I'm excited to read through this last section of Microsoft's response here to the CMA in terms of their remedies. If you guys have been following the channel, I have a playlist of all of the Activision Blizzard stuff. There's been so much stuff to talk about in the last month or so. So there's lots of content there. If you want to just get caught up, go check out that playlist. If you want to go check out the other parts of this, I guess, series going through their responses, I've gone through parts 1 to 4 so far. And we're going to finish it off here with part 5. And then there's a conclusion at the end. That's just like one small section. We'll do that as well. And yeah, it'll be a fun time. Can everyone hear me well? Let me know in the chat that everything's going good here. And we'll just jump right into it. Let me see how many people we got in here right now. 32, 43. It's awesome, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Hit the like button. If you have any questions, I'll try to get to your questions. You're gonna have to highlight them in one way, like either at Plume Network, or obviously if it's a super chat, I'll see it, but not asking you guys to give me money or anything like that. But just like, you have to highlight it, especially if the chat's going, because I'm going to be reading through this, and then maybe in between the certain sections, I'll stop and read some of the comments that I can identify. But yeah, we got 47 people in here right now. It's awesome. We'll get started really, really soon. Just wait like maybe 2 more minutes. One second here. All right, let me just read some of the comments before we get in here. Okay. What time in my area right now? It is 11:30 a.m. Elliot Wizard, thank you for joining the membership section. That's awesome. Anyone out there who's interested in joining, it's just 99 cents per month, and it's just kind of, you get the badges and everything, and just to show the support for the channel. Thank you, Elliot Wizard, for joining. Yeah, I did see that. It's awesome. Thank you. Stream's current bitrate is lower than the recommended bitrate. Why is it saying that? Everything looks good on my end. I don't know why it's telling me that. But I think everything's good here. Is the video good, guys? Getting a slight warning via YouTube, but I think look, everything is looking good to me. I don't see any issues here with the stream. 3 in here. What's up, everybody? Hope everyone's having a good day. We live in Sweden, so it's 5:25. Oh. Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead because I know I'm getting a warning here, but everything is looking great to me. You've got 63 of you guys in here, and we'll just jump right into this. So, like I said, if you're new here, I have an entire playlist going over all of the stuff for the ABK deal, all the videos that I've created, and a couple of videos going over this document up until where I ended off last, which is part number 5, which is the divestment remedy. As we know, that with the CMA, that's one of the things that they suggested, which was selling off Call of Duty and selling off other parts of Activision Blizzard. Brad Smith has already come out and said that's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. I doubt Microsoft would sell off any of of this deal in order to get it passed, especially with some of the stuff that we are seeing right now. Some of the numbers coming out of the UK in terms of like their market share and the amount of billions that they actually bring into the gaming industry. The CMA obviously is their biggest hurdle and roadblock, but in terms of the billions they contribute to gaming and to the amount of money they actually contribute to Microsoft, it actually seems relatively small. It actually seems relatively small of in terms of the importance in terms of their revenues. I mean, that's what the charts look like. I could be wrong on that, but we'll see what happens going forward. But they also kept the door open for the behavioral remedies. So section 5, divestment remedy. 5.1, the CMA has identified 2 potential structural remedies: prohibition of the merger, or 2, a partial divestiture of part of Activision, i.e. the business associated with Call of Duty, the Activision segment, or the Activision Blizzard segment. So like I said, Call of Duty or the Activision Blizzard segments, which Microsoft isn't going to do. From what we understand, doesn't make any sense. They want the entire thing. And if they were to sell off those segments of the business, they would be missing out on some of the biggest mobile gaming that they are looking for. Some of the biggest mobile games like Call of Duty Mobile, Diablo Immortal, all that type of stuff that they said this is what this deal is for mobile. And if you look at the numbers with the amount of money that their mobile games bring in, they aren't lying. This is about mobile. That's where they're going to be making the most amount of money if this deal does go through. Before turning to the specifics of the CMA's proposed remedies, Microsoft notes the following legal points. A, the CMA's proposed divestment remedies would be inappropriate. 5.2, in considering possible divestment remedies, it is important to recall the nature of the relevant statutory provisions. Section 36.2, the Enterprise Act 2002 provided that the CMA is to decide whether action should be taken for the purpose of remedying, mitigating, or preventing. Thus, the language of the statute does not require full prevention of any SLC. So again, SLC, I always like to point this out, significant lessening of competition. That's what that means if we read this in the document going forward. So thus, the language of the statute does not require full prevention of any SLC identified and instead recognizes that mitigation may be sufficient. The requirements of Section 36.2 are also qualified by Section 36.3 to the effect that the CMA shall have regard to achieving comprehensive solution to the SLC and any adverse effects arising as is reasonable and practical. So they're just using their own arguments here in their Enterprise Act of 2002 to kind of, I guess, preface what they're going to be arguing as to why the divestitures don't make sense. And just before we continue, again, I'm just a guy on YouTube. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm just reading through this and just giving my opinion on what I think all this stuff means. So just take it for that as we read through the document. The obligation to have regard to a condition or requirement is not an obligation to fulfill that requirement. Any such consideration is of a solution which is both reasonable and practical. So they're gonna argue, I guess, that it's not reasonable or practical to be selling off any parts of this business. 5.3, in carrying out its assessment, the CMA has consistently recognized that any remedy must be proportionate. That means that the remedy, 1, must be effective to achieve the legitimate aim in question, which would be appropriate. 2, must be no more onerous than is required to achieve that aim, which would be necessary. Must be the least onerous. If there is a choice of equally effective measures, minimal, and 4, in any event, must not produce adverse effects which are disproportionate to the aim pursued. So they're just setting that up right now. 5.4, those considerations must also take into account the potentially extra territorial nature or effect of any remedy, if and insofar as a remedy would necessarily affect the manner in which the parties carry out their business outside the jurisdiction. The CMA will need to take such ramifications into account. So this part, again, very interesting point, because they would say, if you guys are making us sell off Call of Duty or parts of Activision Blizzard in the UK, this is going to significantly affect and have ramifications Xbox's business outside of that region, outside of the UK. And they got to take that into account. Whilst the remedial powers of the CMA may have impacts overseas, the more and greater those effects, the less reasonable, proportionate, and practical will be any remedy. Yeah, so right there. If they had to sell off, so I'm not 100% sure how this works, but from all the reading that I've done, And from everything I understand is that they, I guess, could they could just not go. They could pull out of the UK, I guess, if there's such pushback against, and then still have this deal passed with the FTC and with the EU, and then every other parts of the world that passed this deal. I don't think that they would do that, but I guess technically they could do that. I don't know if anyone in the chat knows that that's a possibility, but if you do, just let me know. But which is why they're saying you got to look at how what you're asking is going to affect the market worldwide, like where we operate. So you can't ask for these unnecessary things to occur because the other parts of the world aren't asking for that. And if we were to do it here, it would just be disproportionate to the effects that you're trying to get with these remedies. So that's what they're arguing right there. I'm pretty sure in 5.4. This is particularly relevant in this case as the merger delivers rivalry-enhancing efficiencies and substantial customer benefits globally and has been cleared in a number of jurisdictions. The demands of committee require the CMA to consider the international dimension carefully, particularly given that the merger situation is taking place outside of the jurisdiction and the UK accounts for only. So this part's redacted, but we did see some numbers. I think they were just estimates, but that they're highlighting here. The UK only accounts for a small percentage of Call of Duty revenues and then a small percentage of the global Call of Duty monthly active users. Like, it isn't that big compared to other parts of the world. So they're just saying, like, you guys, you can't make us be doing these massive things. It's just going to have, it doesn't make any sense. It's not proportionate to the goals that you are trying to achieve. All right, so we have some comments here. Investors wouldn't like that. No, I don't think they would. They can't without modifying the deal. They need approval of all regulators. Okay, that's good to know. And they technically could, but it will never happen if for nothing else government contacts would prohibit them doing any such thing. Yeah, like the likelihood of that happening obviously is like slim to none. But I guess there is something to consider there. And they highlight again here how small the revenues are for Call of Duty in the UK and the percentage of their global Call of Duty monthly active users. Before we continue here, 118 currently in the chat. Welcome, guys. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for bearing with me as I've changed the time on doing this thing. Just a lot of life stuff has popped up, but I'm happy to be here, happy to be reading through this. And if you are just jumping in, this is section 5 of Microsoft's response to the CMA remedies. And I've gone through sections 1 to 4 in videos on my channel. If you do want to go check those out, it's all in the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition playlist. Every video I've made, or almost all of them, may have missed some, but they should all be in that playlist if you do want to get caught up or just interested in some other things that have been going on with this case. Thriller Ali says they could just create a subsidiary company that operates independently in the UK only, but Microsoft and Activision still owns them. Okay, good to know. Good to know. We'll continue here. 5.5. For the reasons further outlined below, the structural remedies considered in the remedies notice, even if effective and practicable, are not proportionate in circumstances where, in the context of a vertical merger, behavioral remedies are effective in remedying and fortiori significantly mitigating any SLC and or adverse effects. There's a lot of big words in this thing, so bear with me. Furthermore, the structural remedies considered would have significant extraterritorial impacts and in any event are each such as to produce adverse effects on the development of competition and innovation that they are disproportionate. And that's, I mean, everything we've seen throughout this deal, all of the arguments has been PlayStation, the only company essentially right now saying that this deal will make gaming industry anti-competitive. It will do irreparable damage to the gaming industry. That was their quote to the GameIndustry.biz article we talked about yesterday, that this deal will cause irreparable damage to the game industry, which if you look at everything that is going on, it just seems so absurd for Sony to be arguing that, especially without really providing any evidence of this irreparable damage that they would be doing. And they're arguing that the deal that Microsoft is offering Sony is going to shut them down. And that's why they've redacted the deal from Sony's response to the CMA remedies. But you got to ask yourself, if that's going to do such irreparable damage to the gaming industry and to Sony, why have Nintendo and Nvidia accepted the 10-year deal that Microsoft has offered, which you would assume is essentially relatively the same deal that they offered Nintendo and Nvidia, relatively the same deal that they would have offered Sony. On top of that, Brad Smith has already come out and said, we will make adjustments to this deal. Sony just needs to agree to sit down at the table and talk to us. And then we have the expose that Lulu Shang Meserve came out and said that Jim Ryan literally does not want Call of Duty, doesn't want a deal. He just wants to block it. He just wants to block the merger. That's their end goal, no matter what, at any extent, at any length, even if it's hurting their own public opinions, people's thoughts about Sony. They just want to block the deal. And I think it's about Call of Duty is one thing, but I think it's also because they understand that this deal going through effectively is going to be helping Xbox. There's going to be forcing PlayStation to pay money to Xbox to help them grow further and further, and it's going to really hurt the chances that Sony is going to be able to catch them in like the streaming and the subscription service in the long term. And they know that they were way too slow in adjusting their business model. And this deal is going to make it even harder for them. And at the end of the day, we've seen this throughout the history of businesses. No matter how big a business is, if they fail to adapt to the emerging market, they fail to adapt to the future of where the market is going, they're going to end up losing their dominant position in that market. And I think Sony is realizing that, which is why they want to do anything in their power to try to stop this deal so that they will have more time to try to adapt to the future of gaming, which, whether you like it or not, I'm not the biggest fan of cloud gaming. I know I say that that's where it's going. If I had it my way, I would still keep it as like the majority of gaming is going to be downloading natively to a console that has good power, playing games on your PC, all that type of stuff. I'm not the biggest fan of cloud gaming, but it's going to be the way that these companies reach the most amount of people. It's going to make them the most money. So that's where the market is going to be going. And who knows how long in the future that's going to be, because still cloud gaming is a long way to go. It's still nascent. So we'll see. But I think that is the future cloud gaming subscription. There won't be any more consoles in 10, 15 years. But it is what it is. I'm not a fan of it, but that's what it is. 5.6, prohibition would effectively involve the largest divestment ever required by the CMA. A prohibition of the merger is wholly unjustified given that the SLCs identified by the CMA relate to only one franchise in relation to consoles and cloud gaming in the UK. This is particularly the case given the agreement reached between Microsoft and Nvidia, which Microsoft considers resolves the cloud gaming significant lessening of competition completely. Nor would such a remedy be reasonable, given its extraterritorial ambit and effect. This is a merger which has been found to increase competition by a number of competition agencies worldwide, and which will deliver benefits conservatively estimated at a redacted amount of money in billions of dollars. It's always sad when we see all these redacted numbers, which would give us way more insight. To prohibit the deal because of the impact on Sony in the UK, which accounts for only a small proportion of COD revenues and gamers, is not reasonable given the CMA's ability to mitigate the harm in other ways. So basically, to prohibit this deal to protect Sony's interest is absolutely unreasonable, and I don't think anybody in their right mind would think it's reasonable if you're objective in any way. You know, the PlayStation fanboys are not objective. They're not going to think that they're going to think it is reasonable. But the reality of the situation is, it's almost like, I tweeted about this the other day. If you're against this deal going through, you're almost, as a PlayStation fanboy, you're almost kind of just owning yourself. Like you're owning yourself, because we've already seen Microsoft is going to offer Call of Duty into PlayStation Plus, into the streaming services. So you're saying, hey, I'd rather go out and pay $70 every year to play Call of Duty than just sign up for PlayStation Plus for the monthly fee or even the yearly fee, get Call of Duty plus tons of other games, and then experience the value of a service similar to Xbox Game Pass. So it's like, to me, that's just crazy. 5.7, a Call of Duty or Activision divestment would still effectively involve the largest divestment ever required by the CMA. The Activision and Blizzard segments operate on a largely independent basis, both from each other and from King. As such, there is no basis on which a prohibition of the merger could be justified. However, even a divestment of the Call of Duty business or the Activision segment alone would be the largest divestment the CMA has required under the Enterprise Act of 2002. The businesses to be divested are outside of the UK. again, making the remedy aggressively extraterritorial in nature. A divestment of part of Activision that is active globally in order to address the UK specific issues identified is not reasonable, given the benefit which the merger will deliver globally. And that's it. That's like one of their main arguments here. Deal delivers globally. It's not just a UK deal, and they got to look at that from that point of view and come up with reasonable expectations with their remedies. About 150 of you guys in here. Thank you guys for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. It's been fun making these videos, talking about everything that's been going on. And it's been great to see that you guys are enjoying it. Appreciate you stopping by. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. Check out the channel, all that type of stuff, especially if you're new here. You like this type of content. Pretty much I'm delivering daily content. So if you guys are into that, hit that subscribe if you are new here in the chat. 5.8. In any event, a partial divestment would be highly uncertain and impracticable. The value of the Activision publishing business, again, redacted info. From Microsoft's perspective, the Activision accounts for a redacted amount of money or redacted percentage or some sort of redacted info. A partial divestment of the Activision and Blizzard segments would redacted. Moreover, Microsoft would redacted. From the CMA's perspective, the success of a divestment process would be highly uncertain. Given the size and global nature of the business to be divested, there are just a bunch of redacted stuff. So that was kind of a useless paragraph because all of the info there is redacted. 5.9. A divestment would have severe adverse effects on the development of competition because it would prevent Microsoft from achieving its key strategic objective, namely building a mobile gaming business with sufficient scale in order to challenge Google and Apple. So again, they're back on the mobile thing. Some people still think they're lying about this. I don't actually truly believe it, especially when you look at the money that mobile games make. It makes more money than any console games can make. It makes more money than any PC games are going to make because you have instant access to everyone. I mean, everyone has phones these days, right? And most people have phones that can play all of these games. So it's just way easier access. And they know that the product is already in everybody's hands. Now they just got to convince them to download, hit a button and download the game as they're playing it. And they're going to take on Google and Apple, which I don't know about you, but again, that's going to create significant competition in the mobile market because they are really the only places you can go right now for your smartphone for downloading and playing games, the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. A divestment of the Activision segment would include a divestment of Call of Duty Mobile and Call of Duty Warzone Mobile. So they even mentioned that here, how big that is. An additional divestment of the Blizzard segment would include Diablo Immortal, which is available on PC and mobile. These are among the most relevant mobile games published by Activision. It is these games, particularly Warzone Mobile and Diablo Immortal, rather than King games. Interesting. So they're kind of saying those are more important than Candy Crush and the other King games, which will provide Microsoft with the assets, know-how, and talent to develop mobile versions of its own console games. So they're saying they need this deal. Now, I would argue that Microsoft, a $1 trillion company, could get these assets and know-how if they wanted to, whether this deal goes through or not. But they're arguing that they specifically need Activision Blizzard to be able to get those assets. No, I wouldn't buy that, but that's what they're arguing there. 5.10. A carve out of these mobile games from the divestment perimeter would not be practicable for the reasons outlined below. Okay, so there's a bunch of redacted here. So when I say redacted, it's because the info's not there. Call of Duty Mobile was developed and is owned by Timmy. Is it Timmy or Taimai or whatever? Timmy Studios, a subsidiary of Tencent. Any spin out of the game would therefore redacted. Call of Duty Mobile is expected to be phased out over time outside of China with the launch of Warzone Mobile. Again, they talk about Warzone Mobile, which is scheduled for release later in 2023. Diablo Immortal was released in June 2022 by Blizzard on PC and mobile. Diablo Immortal was co-developed by NetEase. The mobile and PC versions of the games redacted, and there is cross-play and cross-progression across both versions. The mobile and PC versions of the game are tied technically and commercially, and there are also ties to other Diablo titles in terms of art and game mechanic similarities, although there was no cross-progression between these titles. Hearthstone was released in March of 2014 by Blizzard on PC and Mac OS. Okay, so talk about Hearthstone. Warcraft Arclight Rumble, recently released mobile in beta by Blizzard. They talk about the game and who's developed it. So nothing crazy there, but they're just going over the games that they would be getting. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the stream. Just going through part 5 here of Microsoft's response to the CMA in terms of the remedies notice. So if you're here, hit the like button. If you enjoy it, share the stream around. I appreciate you all for dropping in. B, the CMA's proposed divestment remedy would be disproportionate. 5.11. In carrying out its assessment, the CMA must select a remedy which is appropriate, necessary, minimal, and must not produce adverse effects which are disproportionate to the aim pursued. Both a prohibition and partial divestment are clearly disproportionate. The divestment remedies proposed eliminate substantial RCBs, which I believe is relevant customer benefits. Again, they say this at the top. So if you hear RCBs, I believe that's what that means. The loss of benefits is not limited to the UK. Given that the divestment remedies proposed are extraterritorial in scope, substantial harm will be caused to consumers in other countries, including countries where the deal has already been cleared. Finally, a prohibition or partial divestment remedy in this case will result in costs to the UK consumers through distortions in market outcomes, be disproportionate to the size of the cloud gaming, significant lessening of competition, which the CMA has provisionally identified, and reduce investment and innovation. 5.12. A divestment remedy will extinguish RCBs. A divestment will result in the loss of the RCBs outlined above. The loss of such RCBs due to the implementation of a divestment is a material cost which the CMA must take into account in making its remedy selection. The net present value of such losses would be in excess of billions of dollars, again, all redacted over 10 years in the UK. Globally, the lost benefits would be in the region of, again, billions of dollars. So they're using real values here to try to convince them that you're going to lose more money. It's going to hurt consumers. It's not going to be good for the industry, not going to be good for the economy. So this is why this divestment just doesn't make any sense. A, loss of exclusive Call of Duty content to Xbox and PC gamers. Following the merger, benefits which are currently only available to PlayStation gamers would be made available to Xbox and PC gamers. These benefits will be lost in the event of a divestment. Publishing deals are negotiated on a global basis, as many purchasers of the Activision segment would be assumed to have the same incentives as Activision currently does. Sony, as the largest console platform, will continue to be able to pay the divested business more for content and timed exclusivity than Microsoft can, given its smaller scale. And you know what? This is the most hilarious thing. The most hilarious thing from this entire deal is when they're looking at this and they're pointing out things that they believe will be anti-competitive, like exclusivity, timed exclusivity, feature parity, content parity, that not being part of Call of Duty if this deal goes through. All those things that they are highlighting, and that Sony is arguing that will make a reason why this deal should be blocked, Sony currently does. So that's what I find hilarious. Like, it's a simple argument to me at the end of the day. Currently, Call of Duty, there's no parity between the platforms. If this deal goes through, there will be parity between the platforms, and on top of that, the game will be going to other subscription services. So if you're just a gamer from an objective point of view, this is a good thing for gamers. Unless you're sitting back and believing that Microsoft is literally going to just destroy the game and cut costs and make sure that the game is cheaper to develop so that they can make more money, and overall the experience of Call of Duty will be worse. And I absolutely have no reason to believe that. It doesn't make any sense. Why would they hurt the most powerful, at least one of the most powerful IPs in gaming, when they absolutely have no reason to do that? There's no need to do that. They don't need to be saving money on Call of Duty because Call of Duty is a cash printer. So it's like, at the end of the day, objectively, it's good for gamers. It's good for the Call of Duty community. It's good for no matter what console you're playing on. B, loss of benefits from Call of Duty on the Nintendo console platform. Following the merger, Microsoft will develop and publish future native console versions of Call of Duty titles on the Nintendo platforms for at least 10 years. And this is the big question. How are they going to do that on the current day Switch? Well, I guess you could just look at the examples of games like Doom Eternal. How did they get that game running on it? How did they get The Witcher 3 running on the current Nintendo Switch? All of that type of stuff. You would assume that they'll be able to get Call of Duty running. I feel like Call of Duty, they do a really good job of scaling the game depending on what platform that it is on. I mean, you even look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on the Series S, and the ability to get 120 FPS on that on Series S version, or at least having that feature available. You get really good frame rates, and the game looks still great on the Series S. You would assume that they have a good idea how to optimize and then scale these games for the different platforms that they are on. And maybe this means that they have an idea that Nintendo is going to be announcing their new Nintendo console very, very soon. So the next Call of Duty may just launch on that, right? They may be on the Nintendo Switch 2, the Nintendo Switch Pro. But one thing they do clarify here, which was a scenario that I thought could have happened, was the Nintendo Switch has games where there's like cloud features to it. I think like Resident Evil way back. I forgot which one. Maybe it was 8. Maybe it's Resident Evil 8. I'm not sure. Not sure which one. But there are games on there that have cloud stuff. And that's been ruled out. It's the native versions that are going to be coming to the Switch. It's not going to be a cloud version, which I think is good. I think it's fine. All right. This efficiency will be lost in the event of a divestment, as any purchaser of the Activision segment would be assumed to have the same incentives as Activision currently does, which would be not putting it on the Switch, right? I guess that's what they're insinuating there. C. Loss of benefits from Call of Duty and other Activision content on Game Pass. Microsoft plans to make Activision content available in Game Pass day and date. Will increase customer choice and lower the cost of access. Not only Game Pass, but also, like they said, other subscription services. The CMA accepts that Activision will not make its most valuable games, such as Call of Duty, available on subscription services on the date of release absent the merger. This reflects Activision's concern regarding the potential impact on its buy-to-play revenue of placing any games, especially new games and day-and-date releases, on multi-game subscription services. This efficiency will be lost in the event of a divestment, as any purchaser of the Activision segment would be assumed to have the same incentive as Activision currently does, and would also not internalize the broader benefits of including this title within Game Pass. And of course, if this deal doesn't go through, the Call of Duty is not going to be on Game Pass. It's not going to be on a subscription service. It's going to be $70 full price, which I guess for a lot of people, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal realistically if you're somebody who only plays Call of Duty, like you're paying $70 every year to play maybe a couple games on your console, but Call of Duty is your primary game. It's not a big deal for those people. But for the fact that if it does go into Game Pass, you're going to get a lot of people that just wouldn't play Call of Duty on a regular basis, don't pay $70 every year for it, jumping in and playing the game. It's going to expand the player base even more. And I mean, I think the bigger community, the bigger pool of players that you get to select from when you're in matchmaking, just makes the game better. Makes it easier to get into matches, which that's never an issue with Call of Duty, but it's better to have a bigger community across any game. You look at Halo Infinite now, the amount of players playing Halo Infinite has drastically fallen compared to previous Halos and stuff. So it'd be great to somehow find a way, maybe if this deal goes through, kind of have some sort of cross stuff happening, cross promotions and all that stuff, to kind of make the player bases for all of these FPSs under the Xbox Game Studios brand bigger and more people playing, and just expanding out the communities. D. Loss of benefits from Xbox mobile platform. A significant portion of Activision's value for Microsoft's mobile strategy comes from native mobile versions of its popular console and PC games, such as Call of Duty Mobile, Diablo Immortal, and the upcoming Warzone Mobile, and Warcraft Arclight Rumble, as well as the potential to develop native mobile versions of console and PC games in the future. These games are not developed by King. Rather, it is the combination of Activision's games and the mobile expertise across the Activision business, including King, that drives Microsoft's strategy. So again, they want that expertise. And I guess you could argue the same thing when they purchased ZeniMax and Bethesda, right? They took the expertise. That's one of the main things that they did talk about at that roundtable, was like having the expertise of those studios from Bethesda to be able to go out there and help other studios at Xbox if they wanted to. And that's definitely invaluable. I mean, that's like something you can't really quantify with a number, is the expertise of the people that work there, and will be able to add that to your company. That's probably one of the most important things. Now, could they go out and acquire this expertise in other ways if this deal doesn't go through? Absolutely. They're $1 trillion company. I'm sure they can find a way. But this it covers it all. They got the mobile games, They get all of the expertise from the years of an insane amount of money that King has been making with games like Candy Crush, as well as just how well Warzone and Call of Duty Mobile, Diablo Immortal have been doing. The acquisition of King or King and Blizzard will not be sufficient to realize these relevant customer benefits. While difficult to quantify, the CMA accepts that the process of dynamic competition has economic value in the present, even where entry attempts may ultimately be unsuccessful. All right. 5.13. A divestment remedy will result in costs to the UK customers through the same distortions in market outcomes that the CMA is seeking to prevent. The CMA's merger remedies guidance views competition as a dynamic process of rivalry between firms seeking to win customers' business over time. In a typical case, restoring this process of rivalry through structural remedies such as divestitures, which reestablishes the structure of the market expected in the absence of the merger, should be expected to address the adverse effects at source. So I guess essentially they're saying if you're making us sell off these parts of the deal, it's just going to reestablish the structure of the market that currently is there. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this current market that is bad for customers and bad for consumers. It doesn't provide customers the best amount of benefits. So you would assume that you would think that they would want this deal to go through when they look at the overall benefits that it is going to bring to customers. And it was really telling with some of the stuff that was pointed out in the customer benefits section of this document in a previous video I did, that Microsoft really honed in on, like how this deal is going to be better for gamers and for the average consumer out there. It's just like obvious in terms of the access and the price of stuff, how they're going to be able to drive the prices down, how they're not going to have to actually raise the price of Game Pass, the entire economies of scale argument, where the more people that are accessing Game Pass, they actually can reduce the pricing or keep the pricing the same, rather than contrary to what people are believing that they're going to have to increase the price to because of this deal. Potentially, if this deal doesn't go through, maybe at some point they will have to increase the price. We don't know. 5.14. This is not a typical case. Instead, this is an unprecedented case where the company allegedly at risk of foreclosure has been the market leader for more than 20 years and is significantly larger than the merging party. The dominant company, market leader, are saying that they are at risk of foreclosure because of one single video game. And that's what we've seen throughout these documents, which is almost laughable. Whether they're telling the truth or not, you'd assume. I don't think they would go out and like completely lie about this stuff. Who knows what legal problems that would get them into, but they're essentially arguing that they have one pillar holding up PlayStation, and that is Call of Duty. You take that out, they're screwed. There's nothing they're going to be able to do. And even though the game has been offered to them for 10 years, the terms that have been offered will foreclose the company, because they will lose their dominant position in the market. They'll be paying all this money to their direct competitor, which will be making their direct competitor stronger, which then at some point is going to allow Microsoft, because of all the money they're taking from PlayStation, to foreclose them. I guess that's their entire thing here that they're arguing. All right, guys, before we continue, 220 in the chat. Appreciate it, guys. Hit the like button. Share it out. And thank you again for stopping by. And I know if you've been looking at, I've been posting this to go live and been changing the times, just crazy stuff that's been happening. So I'm finally able to sit down and go through this. Really excited to continue to read through this. We're almost on page 28 here of 33. So we're getting to the end of the document. And if you haven't checked out my playlist, I have a playlist of all the ABK stuff, all the videos in there, where I've gone through the other sections of this document. It's a lot of interesting stuff to read over, and it's always good to read the actual documents themselves, because there's all these articles that come out where it's a lot of people's kind of picking and choosing which parts to focus on and kind of adding opinion to it. But now we're seeing exactly what they've been talking about. So continuing here, looking at the relative size of Sony and Microsoft, the installed console base is split roughly percentage to Sony and percentage to Microsoft. So they're talking where the difference is in terms of who's the market leader. The CMA accepts that Sony has a significant lead over Microsoft in content, and that content is a very important factor affecting console choice. There is a further unique aspect in this case. That is, that one of the competition concerns which the CMA is attempting to prevent already exists, just directed at the smaller player in the market, Microsoft. The CMA provisionally finds that even where content is available on PlayStation and Xbox, competition is only affected where Call of Duty is available on equal terms. So here it is. What currently is happening right now is Call of Duty is not equal. That is not the case today. With Sony having exclusive access to certain Call of Duty content, the CMA's logic implies that Xbox, as the console with the reduced offering, exerts a weaker competitive constraint as a result. It's hilarious as I read through this document and I sit back and I think all of these things that Microsoft is arguing, so many people, when this whole process started and we saw Sony coming out against this deal, so many people instantly were just like, this doesn't make any sense. If you follow the gaming industry whatsoever, you know that the game is not equal right now, and PlayStation is literally keeping stuff exclusive because they have the marketing rights to the game. You read through this document, Microsoft pays lawyers big money to come up with this and write this stuff, and it's like anyone following the gaming industry recognizes this. Could have said the exact same thing. So how does the CMA and the regulatory bodies not recognize this stuff instantly as they're going through and evaluating this merger? 5.16, there has never been a vertical merger where input foreclosure was found to give rise to a significant lessening of competition in such circumstances. In this case, divestment will eliminate rivalry, enhancing efficiencies, and preserve the status quo where PlayStation has double the installed base, acknowledged content leadership, and exclusive content in relation to Call of Duty, a game the CMA says is capable of making a material difference to the competitiveness of rivals gaming platforms. This is why a divestment to Sony's preferred outcome as a dominant market leader globally. In considering the interests of consumers, the CMA should treat Sony's statements with utmost caution. Now, when it comes to Call of Duty and the marketing rights and the fact that they do have exclusive content currently on PlayStation, we know this comes to an end in 2024. So let's let's hypothetically say this deal doesn't go through. Is there any chance Call of Duty goes back and works with PlayStation again with the marketing rights? Based off of how they've pretty much just destroyed their relationship with everything that is going on here, I would say probably not. But would that mean if Microsoft gets the marketing rights to Call of Duty, if this deal doesn't go through, are they going to be taking part in the same things that PlayStation has taken part in since 10 years now? I don't know. When was the marketing deal? So I think 2015, maybe. I'm not sure. But for however long they've had the marketing deal, will Xbox and Microsoft take part in the same thing if this deal doesn't go through and Activision stays independent? That is the question. And I know there's a lot of people that are saying they better do it. They better stop being Mr. Nice Guy, because where's Mr. Nice Guy gotten you? As we see Sony here just trying to pull out all the stops to stop this deal from going through. Then you'll have other people that say, you know what? If they're going to be true to their word, even if this deal doesn't go through, and let's say they get the marketing rights to Call of Duty, they need to keep things on equal terms, and offer the game still with the same features and everything on PlayStation as it is on Xbox. What they will have advantage of is just being able to market Call of Duty with the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. So we'll see how that plays out. That will be very interesting to see. There's a lot of interesting things that is going to come out of this deal if it does not go through. What's Microsoft going to do with all that cash that they have now that they were intended to put into this deal? If it goes through, won't have to think about any of that stuff. 517. In imposing a remedy, the CMA is permitted to take reasonable and practicable action to remedy, mitigate, or prevent the SLC or any adverse effects which may be expected to result from the SLC. However, in choosing between two remedies which address the SLC on grounds of proportionality, the CMA may consider whether a proposed divestment remedy would distort competition, even if such distortion predates the merger. There is no requirement on the CMA to ignore pre-existing distortions of competition which harm competition and consumers. Failure to take this into account is to ignore a relevant fact. That's really well said. I mean, that's the thing. It almost seems like they are ignoring that right now. They are ignoring the fact that what they are arguing this deal is going to do is currently occurring, but in reverse. The dominant market leader is currently doing things that are anti-competitive to push down the smaller platform. And they're arguing that Microsoft is going to use these anti-competitive tactics to foreclose the market leader, which again, it just doesn't make sense. So we'll see how, if they stop ignoring that going before they make their final decision at the end of April. 518, if the CMA upholds its provisional conclusion that making Call of Duty partially exclusive to Xbox would give rise to an SLC, the CMA must recognize that Call of Duty has been partially exclusive to PlayStation since 2015. Yeah, there it is. That's when the marketing deal started, and that is in 2015. A divestment which restores the status quo restores the partial exclusivity in favor of PlayStation. Based on the logic set out in the CMA's provisional findings, a divestment would cause harm to Xbox and PC gamers as compared to Microsoft's proposed licensing remedy, which we will never get those numbers, at least as of right now, what's involved in their licensing remedy. The contribution of Call of Duty on Xbox is similar to PlayStation. The CMA provisionally concludes that Call of Duty is an important input to PlayStation. It is one of the 3 largest franchises on PlayStation and contributed a significant share of PlayStation's consumer spend and gameplay time in 2021. The parties do not agree with the CMA's conclusion, but Call of Duty is also one of the 3 largest franchises on Xbox and contributed a similar share of Xbox's consumer spend and gameplay time in the UK. As such, if Call of Duty is an important input for PlayStation, which is denied, the CMA has to accept that it's also an important input for Xbox. So as you can see, third-party games, PlayStation, Xbox, whatever, contribute significantly more than first-party games. So the argument that people are always trying to use is that first-party is the most important thing for these platforms. Sure, it plays an importance, but it is definitely not the most important thing. And I mean, we've seen that play out in many ways, even with Xbox taking their first-party games and putting them on PC same day as the console, and people still buying them and spending tons of money on Steam on them. So the argument, I think, now can officially be put to rest that it is about the third party that is more important for these companies, because you get more broad range of people coming into your platform, and they're spending more money in your ecosystem, on the stores on both Xbox and on PlayStation. Microsoft will be a weaker competitive constraint with a divestment. The CMA also provisionally concludes that partial Call of Duty exclusivity would significantly weaken SIE as a competitive constraint to the merged entity. Partial exclusivity in relation to certain features of Call of Duty would, according to the CMA, have a similar effect on console competition to total exclusivity. The parties do not agree with the CMA's conclusion, but in any event, the existing agreement with Activision gives Sony, and it's redacted, but you would assume, they say here, gives them 10 years of Call of Duty, gives them Call of Duty into PlayStation Plus, into their subscription services, gives them Call of Duty at the same price, same features, same content, same day of release, all that type of stuff. You would assume that's what would be in that redacted section there, and we would have the specific numbers. C, Call of Duty content and timed exclusives impact Xbox more than PlayStation. The CMA provisionally concludes that not making Activision content available on equal terms will reduce that console's competitive offering. Emphasis added. Microsoft's YouGov survey shows that the potential impact of Call of Duty partial exclusivity is small, but importantly, the impact is greater on Xbox than on PlayStation. A small percentage of gamers who intend to purchase PlayStation for their next main gaming console would switch to Xbox if Call of Duty was partially withheld from PlayStation but available on Xbox. And there was the 2 surveys. You had the CMA survey, which said 24% of people would be switching over. Microsoft came back and said, our survey with YouGov is a significantly less number, and that a small amount of people are going to be switching over if they withhold Call of Duty. And they're specifically talking here about the next generation, like the next console that comes out that people would switch. Whether this deal goes through or not, there's going to be a small percentage of people that switch from PlayStation to Xbox and Xbox to PlayStation, or Xbox to Nintendo, or PlayStation to Nintendo, all that stuff. That happens every single generation, no matter what big mergers happen, no matter what big deals happen. I mean, I've seen this 2 generations in a row, the significant switch over because of bad press as they have announced and launched this console. First, you had PS2, like the most successful console. Insane numbers they did with that. They came out with the PS3, and the pricing and the marketing with the PS3 at launch was just abysmal. People weren't buying it, and they switched to the 360. Then you had the 360, an extremely successful console, especially like specifically in North America. And then you had the Xbox One announcement, which was again abysmal with the Kinect and the DRM. And although they went back on a lot of that stuff, you saw a significant amount of people switch from the Xbox 360 to the PS4 at launch. And again, going into this gen here, Series X and the PS5, I would say both had decent offerings at the start. Both had good marketing for it. I would say the PS5 did worse than the Xbox Series X in terms of the way that they launched and announced their console. And you see a lot of people going to the Series X compared to the amount of people that just ignored the Xbox One. So it's like one of the biggest things is the announcement and marketing at the beginning of these generations that determine where people are going to be going. And there's, believe it or not, there are console wars. There are fanboys on both sides, but there are majority of people, more people out there that make their decisions objectively based on what the offerings are when they announce the new consoles. So Call of Duty isn't going to be like the only thing. There's going to be so many factors in here in terms of what people choose in the next generation of consoles. A larger percentage of gamers who intend to purchase an Xbox as their next main gaming console would switch to PlayStation if Call of Duty was partially withheld from the Xbox but available on PlayStation. Microsoft's internal documents also show that. So they're saying you take Call of Duty off of PlayStation, you put it on Xbox, percentage of people will switch, but if in reverse, if you take it off of Xbox and keep it only on PlayStation, way more people are going to be switching from Xbox to PlayStation. Divestment preserves the status quo and harms Xbox and PC gamers. As such, if the CMA expects that Sony will be significantly weakened by partial exclusivity, the CMA must equally acknowledge that Microsoft is significantly weakened by the status quo arrangements, which will be preserved by a divestment. Publishing deals are negotiated on a global basis. Sony, as the larger console platform with a larger roster of exclusive titles, will continue to be able to pay the divested Activision business more for content and timed exclusivity than Microsoft can, given its smaller scale globally. While these distortions exist pre-merger, the CMA can take them into account in considering the costs and benefits of the proposed remedies. So they're arguing here they have bigger first-party exclusive titles, and that you have to consider the fact of this against Xbox and how that means that if things stay the same, it will hurt PC and Xbox gamers. Now, I will argue this, that the Microsoft being sly here a little bit with this part here. We know Microsoft has 23 studios, right? They have some of the biggest franchises under Bethesda, even some of the biggest franchises in-house, like Halo and Gears of War. Like, those are huge franchises. And Minecraft, of course. In the next 10 years, will this big first-party advantage by PlayStation, whether this deal goes through or not, will it still be that big? I would argue no. I would argue that once it starts rolling with all of the studios that they have, once games are dropping on that consistent basis that they are aiming for, and we're kind of starting to see that here in 2023. I know people are still pissed off that Starfield got pushed to September, but you look at how good Game Pass has been doing, even just like with Hi-Fi Rush, how great of a game that is. And if you think of all the games that are supposed to be coming out this year from Xbox with Redfall and Starfield and Forza, they're big first-party hitters. We're starting to already see that, like 4, maybe 5 first-party games dropping into the Xbox ecosystem. Once that happens on a yearly basis and people's confidence increases that Xbox can be delivering that, I don't think PlayStation is going to have that big first-party advantage anymore, whether this deal goes through or not. I just don't think that they will. I think Xbox has some major IPs under them, and IPs that will be able to generate far more revenue than PlayStation's first-party IPs because of the microtransactions that they're going to be able to make within those games, or like games as a service stuff and multiplayer stuff. Like, I think at the end of the day, in 10 years from now, we're going to see a big switch unless PlayStation changes their strategy. We know they are working on a ton of games as a service games. I think they want to release like 10 or 12 or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, if I remember that correctly, by 2026 or something like that. So unless they're able to hit, and we don't know that those games are going to be successful, because look how bad Destruction All-Stars was at the launch of the PS5. They don't have, if people have no confidence in that, a lot of people like shit on Xbox, so they don't have confidence that they're going to be able to release games on time and handle first parties on time, all type of stuff. I have zero confidence that Sony is going to be able to make good multiplayer games. Essentially, I just don't have any confidence in them. They haven't done it in a long time. So I'm not sitting here banking that they're going to be able to compete with Xbox. So I think in the next 10 years, whether this deal goes through or not, that first party argument is going to be reversed, or it's going to be much closer. Like that first party advantage that Sony has isn't going to be there. But we will see. That's just my prediction. 519, Microsoft's proposed content licensing remedy ensures parity in relation to Call of Duty and avoids distortions in market outcomes. Moreover, as explained below, the status quo weakens Nintendo as a competitor, whereas the merger would enable it to offer Call of Duty. I like this argument here because yes, it does weaken Nintendo as a competitor because they haven't had Call of Duty since Call of Duty Ghosts. And maybe it's because Sony has just not wanted that, because obviously that's their main competitor in Japan, right? So they don't want, but I don't know what the numbers are of the amount of people that play Call of Duty in Japan, but maybe they're like, yeah, we want this marketing deal because we definitely don't want this game on Nintendo. But at the end of the day, I'm sitting here and thinking, does Nintendo really care that much about having Call of Duty? I know they're probably just like, Microsoft offered us a 10-year deal. I mean, we'll take it. Who cares? We'll get another third party onto our platform. Why not? It's better to have it than to not have it. But do they truly care that much about having it based off of the success that they have had without Call of Duty? That would be an interesting thing to see what their thought process was when this deal was offered to them. I'm sure they care a little bit because it will drive a lot of money to the Nintendo platform and to the Nintendo ecosystem. So I'm sure there is that part of it, but they would be completely fine, which they've proven with the Switch that they don't need Call of Duty to survive. And that alone, I think, destroys the whole PlayStation argument. It's like you have an example of a platform that hasn't had Call of Duty in years, and look how well they're doing. And you're sitting here saying that you need this game to survive, even with that big first party catalog that you always talk about as the virtuous cycle and what makes PlayStation unique. That's the disconnect there for me. A divestment remedy is wholly disproportionate to the size of the cloud gaming SLC. The CMA has provisionally found that the merger may result in a SLC in the market for the supply of cloud gaming services in the UK. Microsoft does not agree with this conclusion, but notes that cloud gaming in the UK is de minimis and expected to remain so. So de minimis, again, means like inconsequential or not very relevant. And they're expecting that to continue. Requiring a multi-billion-dollar divestment of Activision or Activision and Blizzard in order to address such a tiny, uncertain SLC is wholly disproportionate. And again, this argument here, it's Microsoft saying one of the things that they are investing the most in is not going to be relevant or expected, and is expected to remain so for quite a number of years. I get cloud gaming is nascent, but we know that at the end of the day, Microsoft wants cloud gaming to be like on everybody's device, whether that's in 10 years or 20 years or whatever. That's what they want. They want everyone to open up their phone and to see that Xbox app and know that that's where you go to play games through the cloud. That's their goal. The cloud gaming market is de minimis and will remain so, as will be explained in the response to the provisional findings. Cloud gaming is not a product, let alone a market on console. Gamers on PlayStation and Nintendo and Xbox can access cloud gaming as a feature of their existing console experience. PlayStation and Nintendo are walled gardens, so gamers cannot use these consoles to access other cloud gaming services. Cloud gaming on console cannot be divorced from the console itself. Cloud gaming on console cannot be divorced from the okay, makes sense, and is no more than another parameter on which consoles compete against each other. They talk about users who access cloud gaming via PC in the UK. It's all redacted though, the number. Again, just more redacted numbers. The CMA has not considered UK shares of supply, but this is an extremely small proportion of the roughly 18 million PC gamers in the UK. While cloud gaming may grow, Microsoft expects that it will account for only a percentage of the total consumer spend on gaming by 2025. A divestment remedy will deliver minimal benefits, if any, based on the CMA's provisional findings. The CMA considers it likely that, big redacted section, It has also found that strong indirect network effects mean that the publishers will not license their content to small providers given the costs involved. Activision has been clear that, again, more redacted stuff, there is no reason to consider that a divestment purchaser would act differently to Activision. Even if the divestment purchaser agreed to a deal with, I wonder why that's redacted, but I guess that's Sony's, some of their terms or whatever. The CMA's evidence demonstrates that a divestment purchaser would not place Activision content on multiple cloud gaming platforms available in the UK, given the small scale of such services and significant costs involved. And that's a point that's very relevant. At the end of the day, Microsoft has the technology and the money to be able to actually go and deliver Activision Blizzard games and Call of Duty on other platforms and be successful doing this and have that infrastructure. Just, they can do it. They have the power to do it. Other companies that would potentially purchase Activision Blizzard wouldn't be able to do that, I don't think. I agree with them there. Like, it would be hard for them to do it. And maybe unless it's like a Google or like a Tencent that comes in and does it as well. But would you want a Google or a Tencent purchasing Activision Blizzard versus Microsoft with Xbox, based off of the way that we've seen these companies operate in terms of game? I mean, Google obviously utterly failed with Google Stadia, and you can't convince me, I've said this so many times, that it's because the cloud gaming market is just so dominated by Xbox, they had no chance. Google is a $1 trillion company as well, and they couldn't do it because they didn't do the right things within gaming compared to what Xbox has done. And from what Xbox has been doing with their gaming side of the business, has been good for gamers. Objectively, no matter what side of the fence you're on, it has been good for gamers. It's brought more value, it's brought more access, and we've never in our lifetimes, I know there may be people watching this video that haven't experienced older generations of gaming, older generations of console, but this has easily been the best time for being able to access and play video games ever in our lifetime. And it's not even close. And a big part of that is because of Xbox and because of Xbox Game Pass and obviously what they're doing with the cloud. And if you lived in the days where you would go and have to rent a game that you had no idea what this game was about, and then get home and realize it was a crappy game and have to sit with it for a week or for 3 to 5 days or whatever, and that was the only game you could play, you're just like, that was my childhood. And now we're literally at a point where you can click an app and get access to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games. If you don't like the game that you played, click on another game. It's crazy. The technical work required would entail extensive testing, software adaptation, and optimization to enable a game run smoothly on a cloud provider system, all while ensuring uniformity of the gaming experience across platforms. This investment is not justified by the size of the commercial opportunity available. The consumer benefit from a divestment would therefore be limited. In contrast, Microsoft's proposed content licensing remedy ensures access to Call of Duty on multiple cloud gaming services. All right, so we're getting to near the end here, guys, of this document, but we have 243 people right on chat. This is crazy. I appreciate everybody jumping in here. Happy to see that you guys are enjoying this content. If you are new here, first time here, go hit the like, share the videos, go check out my channel, all that type of stuff. Appreciate all the support, and I'm going to keep bringing you guys the content. 5.21, a divestment remedy will reduce investment and innovation. In considering dynamic competition, the CMA must also conduct a broader cross-check on incentives to invest and innovate in the UK, as well as the costs imposed on the parties, as the Competition Appeal Tribunal notes. Unwise intervention can just as easily lessen competition as an unwise failure to intervene. And I personally believe this is an unwise intervention, but CMA doesn't believe so. They so far are on the side of Sony. A divestment remedy will deprive Microsoft of anticipated synergies, which it planned to invest in new products and services, as well as imposing significant costs. Microsoft has been clear the assets, know-how, talent, and revenues acquired as part of the Activision business, including the revenues from distributing Call of Duty on PlayStation, will be used to facilitate investment in developing new products and services, particularly in mobile gaming. These assets, talents, and know-how includes Call of Duty Mobile, which has developed by Activision with Tencent, as well as Warzone Mobile, which will be launched shortly, and something's redacted. Something's redacted. Some game is coming that we don't know about yet, I believe. Without the assets, know-how, talent, and revenues from the Activision business, Microsoft will not be able to develop new products and services in mobile. Now, again, do I believe that? No, I don't believe that. I believe this is similar to some of the stuff that, like, I'll be honest, this is like when PlayStation says, if we lose Call of Duty, our whole business is going to close down. I don't believe that if this deal doesn't go through, Microsoft won't have the resources to go out and invest in the mobile sector of games and then develop games for it and be somewhat successful, or at least try to be successful. I don't believe that. They're $1 trillion company. They have so much power, so many resources. I believe that for them, the cost benefit of it all, the return on investment to have to start from scratch and build up the mobile side, probably it's something they don't want to do, more so than they can't do it. But who knows? I could be wrong. The games proposed by King are not sufficient for Microsoft to proceed with this strategy, as a loss of these synergies will also harm customers. These are considered in the context of the loss of RCBs above. Microsoft's proposed content licensing remedies address the SLCs identified by the CMA while preserving Microsoft's ability to invest and innovate. So there it is. That is section 5. They talk about divestment, and we'll quickly read through the conclusion, and then we will have gone through the entire Microsoft response, a 33-page document to the CMA remedies notice. So conclusion, part 6, 6.1. Microsoft is proposing a package of licensing remedies which guarantee parity between the PlayStation and Xbox platforms in respect to Call of Duty. And this was the response that PlayStation gave to gamesindustry.biz yesterday. I made a video on that, so go check it out. And that is PlayStation saying that Microsoft redacted the terms of that agreement in Sony's response to the CMA because they know that it is a bad deal, essentially, is what they're saying. And again, you got to ask yourself, well, if it's such a bad deal, why did Nintendo and why did NVIDIA accept it? And if it's so bad, why aren't you even willing to sit down at the table with Microsoft and negotiate out these bad terms when they've said clearly that they are willing to negotiate? Part 2, ensure wide availability of Call of Duty on other Activision titles and cloud gaming services. So it's not just Call of Duty, as we've read through this document and realized that it's not just Call of Duty that they're making widely available. It's going to be other Activision titles. Now, which games are those going to be? Are they specifically talking about the other Activision mobile titles, other mobile titles in general? Or are they talking about like any Activision game that comes out? Like, what if like the next Crash 5 or something, or the next Tony Hawk, are those going to be widely available on all platforms, on all cloud gaming services, or are those only going to be within the Xbox ecosystem? These remedies protect all COD gamers in the UK and provide substantial benefits to consumers and developers of roughly a bunch of redacted money. In the UK, these RCBs are substantial compared with any adverse effects of the merger, and these benefits would be largely preserved by behavioral remedies, but not by structural remedies. Microsoft therefore believes that the criteria for the CMA to consider behavioral remedies are met in this case. And that's what they're hoping for. They're saying the behavioral remedies we've made to Nintendo, to NVIDIA, the offers we've made to PlayStation, the guarantees we've made to offering these games on PlayStation's cloud gaming services, as well as on their platform, and all of their current customers are still going to be able to access these games. And even saying that we will get a third party to come in and enforce these deals, that should be enough for the CMA to want to push this deal through, because at the end of the day, it will be better for gamers and will be better for competition. And I think from a gamer's perspective, you read through what Xbox is offering compared to what is currently happening right now, specifically with Call of Duty, with the lack of parity across the board, it's better for gamers. It's better for everyone, no matter what platform that you're on. So that is the Microsoft response to the CMA's remedies notice. Like I said throughout this stream, I have that playlist where I go through all the other parts as well. Go check that out. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and I'll see if I can, let me go through some of this chat. I've 230 people in here. Lots going on in the chat. And I appreciate all of you for stopping by. And yeah, this was fun. So I may be doing more of these things as we go through this acquisition. Let's see here. let's see. I'll try to read maybe a couple of things here. Sony's paying to make Final Fantasy to be exclusive ended up pushing me to the Elder Scrolls. I'm actually thankful for that. Well, that's a good argument to make because for a lot of people, Elder Scrolls is definitely better. I probably would choose Elder Scrolls over Final Fantasy as well. Actually, I would. Not probably. I would. Not even for me a question, really. What's up, Wolf of Darkness? All right, guys. You know what? I'm gonna be honest. There's a lot of stuff in the chat here, but again, I appreciate you guys for stopping by. I'm gonna end that here. Yeah, appreciate you guys again for bearing with me as I change the time on the stream a couple of times, but we'll see what happens. The next couple weeks are gonna be very, very interesting. We're mid-March, mid-April or end of April is when they're making the decisions on this deal, and we know that the CMA and we know that EU have lined up their decision dates, but there was another article that came out. And it's, again, speculation. I'm probably going to make a video on it. I want to see what this article is all about. I haven't looked at it yet. Expect that. But they're saying that CMA potentially is going to divert away from the EU in terms of what their decisions are going to be. So we'll see what they say there, because I'm going to go through that article and see if my thoughts on that. So stay tuned for that video coming up. But I'm going to end the stream in about 2 seconds here. So I appreciate you guys all for stopping by. And if you are new here, like I said, check out the channel. I make daily content and really trying to grow this community. It's been awesome. It's been awesome, the support you guys have been giving me. And we'll just continue to grow, continue to talk about this and all of the other gaming news stuff that does come out. But I will catch you guys later. If it's Saturday for you, well, I guess it would be, except maybe Australia. Maybe it's Sunday. I don't know. Have a good weekend, guys. Appreciate you all. I'll catch you guys later.